Lesson 2, how to maintain eye contact with the camera or with the reporter at all times. In lesson 1, how to look relaxed, we talked a bit about this technique and the need to understand when to focus on the camera directly, when to focus on the reporter. The reason that this is important is think of it in terms of a natural conversation. If you're having a discussion with somebody and you're making direct eye contact with them, that's going to be a more substantive, a more engaged, a more credible discussion for both of you. There's nothing more off-putting for people than when you're trying to have a discussion and you cannot maintain that eye contact. They're looking away, they're looking down, they're talking to you as they're looking all over the room. There's no better way to make the audience that you're engaged with feel like you're not engaged in the conversation than when you don't maintain that eye contact. So it's a critically important element of interviewing is always maintaining direct eye contact. The challenge and the difficulty is understanding when to look directly at the camera, when to look directly at the reporter, and occasionally when to look off camera to help emphasize your point and enhance your credibility. So again, you don't want to look deceitful or disingenuous and not looking directly at the person you're talking with or the audience that is listening to what you're saying is a great way to lose some of that credibility and to lose some of that genuine appeal that people take when they feel like you are talking directly at them. So what you want to do is understand the format of the interview first and foremost. And there's going to be different formats and different purposes for interviews. For example, a politician who is being interviewed by a reporter knows who their audience is. They may not be speaking directly to the reporter, even though the reporter is the one asking the question. Their true audience is the voting public that is out listening to that interview. So they may field a question from a reporter. Thank you very much for asking me that. I do have a considered response I'd like to talk to you about, and I'd like to let everybody know exactly where I stand on that issue. So you saw how I changed my focus from the reporter that may have been off camera to demonstrate my interest and engagement in the question that was being asked. I acknowledged that question, slight hand gestures, and then I turned and looked at the camera because I want to field that question and convey my answer to the people that, frankly, I care the most about, which are the ones that are hopefully going to cast their vote for me. So that's an example of using the technique to make sure that you have accommodated both audiences and you appear poised and in control of what you're doing at all times. Now, for most people that are being interviewed by the media, you're going to want to maintain the direct eye contact for the most part with either the camera or the reporter and minimize, if not eliminate, any shifting between those two entities. So if you're being interviewed in a live situation and you're sitting in studio with a reporter, you want to think about where the camera placement is, and then don't ignore the camera completely, but for the most part, you're having a direct conversation with that person who's sitting in the room and the camera is catching it. Now, here's where you think about, am I in a situation where I should acknowledge that there's a camera recording this, or do I want the conversation to appear to be truly a one-to-one conversation that just happens to be caught by the camera? So think about whether you do want to have an occasional glance at the camera in a setting where it is okay to acknowledge that you're aware it's obviously being recorded and that you want to connect occasionally with the people that are listening. So a good way to do that, if you're generally focused on answering the reporter's questions or the other person that's in the interview, you're going to maintain that contact. You're going to situate your body so you're generally face-to-face with them. The production crew will make sure that the camera has a good angle on you, but then you're engaging in that dialogue. You're having your conversation, and then find your strategic moments to look at the camera and maybe acknowledge a point. So you might be asked a question, Mr. Rich, what did you think about that new innovation that's going to allow so many consumers to cut their commuting time down substantially because those smart cars now can avoid traffic? You want to acknowledge that and say, I think that would absolutely be a godsend for most people. And I'm sure all the people watching this are going to appreciate that technological innovation as well. And then look back at the reporter. So look for those opportunities to acknowledge your audience, but not make them the focal point of the conversation. That would be off-putting and somewhat disingenuous if you were to appear to be ignoring the person that's in the room because you only cared about the people that are watching. That will destroy your credibility and not be a good thing in terms of people taking in your key message points.